Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the June Pitchmasters workshop. We are excited to be here today with two fabulous female entrepreneurs, Amy and Cindy. A huge shout out to our partners in crime for Next, which is Maryland Tech Council and SeedSpot. Today we have Brad Fackler from Maryland Tech Council and Zach Leverens, I hope I pronounced that right, Zach, thank you, from SeedSpot. And our guest judge, the phenomenal and famous Inez LeBeau of ETS and Connectpreneur fame. Inez is kind enough to be our guest judge very often, so we're super grateful. And another guest judge who's here, but just hiding and listening in today, Hall Martin, thank you for all of your past help with Pitchmasters. My name is Lisa Friedlander. I probably should have kicked off with that. I'm here representing Next, powered by Shulman Rogers. We are really excited to provide this Pitchmasters workshops on a regular monthly basis and excited to have everybody here today. So as a reminder, the entrepreneurs have 6 minutes to pitch. There's only 2 of them. We'll give a little bit of leeway, but not much. To be followed by feedback from our 3 judges, Brad, Zach, and Inez. Why don't we go in the order? Inez, why don't you kick off the feedback, followed by Brad, followed by Zach. If that sounds good, then we will go ahead and get started. Amy, feel free to go ahead and share your screen and get started when you're ready. Thanks, everybody.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me. Let me get this shared. All right, so good morning to all you lovely, gentle people. I'm so excited to be here today and present to you. So my name is Amy Meadows, and I'm here to present Impact Circles, a business accelerator reality docuseries. So entrepreneurship is on the rise. Women are owning and operating about 31% of businesses and franchises, while only receiving about 3% of venture capitalist funding. Why is that? Well, there are a multitude of reasons, such as implicit and structural bias, internalized shame and self-doubt, denial of credit access, and a lack of network mentors and connections. So to address this problem, Impact Circles is creating a business accelerator reality docuseries. We will be filming women-led, worker-owned companies along their startup journey from idea to demo day, revealing all of the delightful and the messy steps along the way. We'll follow a cast of characters following 3 companies, a host and business coach, and guest experts and mentors in each episode. Each company must have at least 2 members to it, and all of the entrepreneurs will live and work together in the same household, creating a built-in support group for each other. They must all have a commitment to worker ownership, environmental sustainability, and humanist values of respect, diversity, equity, inclusion, and empathy. Each of the 10 episodes that we propose will last about 30 minutes long, following a proven 3-step format of teaching the entrepreneurs and the audience, followed by testing their skills, and then letting each company decide their individual path forward. Each season will follow a 3-step process, creating the foundation of their values, their worker ownership model, and addressing social impact and environmental impact. Then we will go to creation, where they address their product problem and solution, create their financial modeling and term sheets, their marketing plan, and have a little bit of work-life balance. And then we start to present the public phase of the company with public relations, public speaking, and storytelling, followed up with a funding day, with demo days and live crowd funding launches. So why are we doing this now? Well, entrepreneurship is on the rise at about 24% since the beginning of COVID, with worker-owned cooperatives increasing more than 30% during COVID. Not only will we be addressing middle-aged and young women for this show, but we're also going to be addressing teens who at about 40% say they want to start their own businesses, and technology is making this easier than ever. Our bridgehead market is about 1.3 million people, women ages 25 to 40 who are interested in SDG goals. But our total addressable market is about 65 million people. That's the average Netflix viewership of a docuseries. We plan to raise about 810,000, the vast majority of it going to the production, some of the money going into the cohort equity to start these companies on the show, as well as a little bit for our crew and personnel. So again, my name is Amy Meadows. My co-founder is Jessie Huang from China and Hong Kong, and we've been working together the last 2 years. We've created a partnership with EY in Hong Kong the last couple of years, running business workshops. We've led leadership and mentoring training with 30 pairs across the past 2 years, and we have a 3,000 person WhatsApp group between San Francisco, Hong Kong, and Singapore. These are just a few of the other partnerships we've been able to build with impact circles over the last 5 years of our total work. The next steps that we have is to create our interview applications for the cohort of women, finalize our project funding, and develop our show sponsor relationships. If you're interested in working with us, reach out to us at info@impactcircles.org, and we'll give access to our data room. Got a quick appendix just for any of those data points I cited. Thank you so much to Lisa Friedlander and the team at Next, powered by Shulman Rogers, Inez LeBeau of ETFs and Connectpreneur, Zach Leverins from SeedSpot, and Brad Fackler from the Maryland Tech Council for putting this on together today. Thank you so much, and I look forward to hearing your feedback.
Fantastic, Amy. Well done. Great presentation and super cool idea. Inez, you want to kick off the feedback?
Yeah, yes, Amy. First of all, I want to tell you that I loved the structure of your presentation, and it was you told a great narrative, right? So I really appreciate that. A couple of things. One is you didn't mention who's your competition. You know, I know like there are cohorts out there and whatever else they're called where people can go and do these things. And so you absolutely need, you know, it's really the purpose of the competition slide is for you to say there is competition. However, what makes you unique? What's your secret sauce? What's your differentiator? I didn't hear that, you know, through your presentation. Number two, you need some kind of, I'm sure you put some kind of business plan together that shows year 1 through 5, and you need a financial slide, and you need to tell us, you know, is it going to be subscription or, you know, what is the business model? So that was, you know, missing. Number 3 is on your team, like what is your experience level? So if, as an investor, I want to know, you know, have you raised money before? Like, you know, we have one person, he has 50 years experience in the pharma industry. I mean, you know, what is your experience level, which is critical for, you know, you to be doing this. My last comment is going to be from your problem slide. You know, I read the same data as you put out, that with the billions, trillions of dollars out there, women last year only received 3%. So that's a big issue. But I didn't understand the segue, but, you know, I thought that you were going to have something different for solving that problem, right? Instead, you talk about doing a documentary, and I didn't understand how doing a documentary is going to help in any way with that bigger problem. Okay.
Okay.
That to me was that was my big miss.
Okay.
So I think you need more clarity around the bridge, right? The bridge, here's the problem and here's our solution, and how do they marry together?
Yeah. I mean, we did analyze Y Combinator, Techstars, 500 startups, along with a lot of other small business accelerators, but they seem to have a very small impact only in the small companies that they could do. Whereas I thought if we could make it into a television show and teach these individual entrepreneurs while teaching the audience, that would create a much larger impact.
You need to say that, Amy.
Okay. Fair. Thank you.
You can use the Shark, I mean, specifically for that, use Shark Tank. I mean, go look at the numbers for Shark Tank. The mere creation of that show has elevated entrepreneurship in a way that would never have existed before, including funding, including making millionaires out of everyday people. So I think, Inez, I agree with that, but I think that's a great way of potentially making that segue by making that comparison.
You know, after that, people are going to stop listening, honestly, because I know the problem, right? At a gut level, I know what the problem is, and then you go and talk about your solution. Amy, you said it well. That was missing as to then why are you doing this? You know, so honestly, you have to do that. So,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Zach. Any feedback for Amy?
Yes, thanks, Amy. And like we just talked about, like this problem is one that we know really intimately at Seed Spot as well, where we serve underrepresented entrepreneurs and try to accelerate access to opportunities, specifically access to capital, both financial and social capital, by the way, which is equally important. So I thought you did a really great job of framing the problem. And, you know, just to reiterate a bit, I did also see that gap between understanding what the organizing objective was or the intended impact and how you kind of rationalize the documentary approach as the best way to achieve that organizing objective or impact. And so being able to spell that out just very clearly for the audience would be helpful. And then you spent a little bit of time on who the audience is within your kind of concentric circles of the addressable market. But I thought you could go a little bit deeper too in explaining even more specifically as it relates to your why, for like why the documentary is the best or a really important solution to this problem you framed. Just to go a little bit deeper on who the audience is for this series, and why that audience is the right audience to then trigger what I think is your theory of change on how you're going to make impact against this larger problem. So that was my main piece of feedback. And then I could also use a little bit more nuts and bolts in this presentation around the kind of distribution model. Who is, I understand at a fundamental level that the customer is the viewer and that there are sponsors engaged in creating the kind of, you know, cost positive business model here. But I'm just curious a little bit more in like how you think about your access to distribution, what that might look like from a practical business standpoint, and why you're best positioned to achieve that as well.
Yeah.
But
we will be filming a pilot episode in July that we'll be posting onto YouTube so that we can then show that you know, more explicitly to larger conferences or larger. Sorry, I read the word conference popped up in the window. To larger groups. Ideally, I would like to see it on Netflix.
Cool.
As the distribution channel. And then to address Inez's financial model, we do plan on making revenue from the show, sponsorships, advertisements, things like that. And then as well as making equity investments into the entrepreneurs that come through. So those equity investments would be the long-term kind of financial piece.
Great. Overall, I think it was a great presentation. Looked really professional. I thought your cadence and delivery were strong. Always good to get more reps in, of course. And if tightening up a little bit of that that linchpin between the solution and the problem, I think would be really useful. But otherwise, great job.
All right, thank you so much.
Terrific. Thanks, Zach. Brad?
Yeah, and it's going to be hard to come up with new stuff here. But I think I agree with the other two. I think it's a good story, and you tell it in a very good way. and they're not a lot of slides where you're reading slides. So the slides match with what you're with what you're saying. Consistent with the other two, I think you need a little bit more granularity in there. How do you get to that 1.3 million? How do you get to the 65 million? So we need a little bit more there. And then from listening to the feedback, you've got the answers to that, but you just didn't tell us. And so I think it would be good. It would be good to drill down a little bit on who the customers are and how you get to them, what your revenue model is. How are you going to make money with this? I mean, if your plan is to reinvest in some of these companies, you're going to have to you're going to have to raise significant funding to do that. So I think we just need a little bit more detail on the how and how long and that kind of thing.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, fantastic. Before we move on to Cindy, since we have a small group, anybody in the audience listening in have any additional feedback for Amy? Feel free to unmute yourself and chime in. We'll open it up for a few minutes.
I had a few comments. I thought it was a great presentation, Amy. I think if you're planning to raise a fund, you need to put out there that you've got a track record there. You've done something with investing and have success. If not you, somebody on your team has that. You may think about expanding your team to get that experience in there instead of trying to go out and build that from the ground up. So that's a great way to get in there and show a little bit broader team, I think will help cover some of the points that people are looking for here. And if you have an impact deal like you do now, you really need an impact metric. Right now, we're talking about exposure to a Netflix level audience and so forth, but how many people do you think you would actually drive into your partner programs to start women-led businesses? And then how many of those would go into a VC fund? It seems like we're still at the very top of the funnel, but what we ultimately need is an impact metric for what comes out of the bottom as well.
Mhm.
Okay. Right. Thanks, all. Anybody else?
I would just add one more thing. Yeah, I think maybe there's room to do a little bit more customer discovery too on the audience side of this to show some demand for a program like this. And again, you can leverage, like Lisa said, analogs, that exist out there, like maybe like Shark Tank, but this is like the Shark Tank for inclusive entrepreneurship and for worker-owned, public good type of approaches to business. And so, yeah, maybe doing a little bit of audience research to be able to talk, specifically about the kind of demand you see for this type of programming.
Okay. Thank you.
Any last words for Amy? Okay, well, great job, Amy. Really thrilled that you were able to join us today. And now we will turn it over to Cindy. Cindy, whenever you're ready, feel free to share and get started.
Great, thank you. Hi, everyone, and thank you for having me today. The pressing problems of today cry out for knowledge fusion. The Ukraine war, the coronavirus, and the huge and complex challenge of climate change. Knowledge fusion is the capability to gather and consolidate knowledge and ultimately solve complex problems, problems that we call silver buckshot problems. This is because there's no silver bullet for climate change. Multiple experts have said we instead need silver buckshot. These experts include Bill McKibben and Catherine Hayhoe. By silver buckshot, our company means that there's an interweaving of partial fixes providing a synergistic solution. However, current technologies aren't built to support the development of silver buckshot solutions. Instead, solution developers and domain experts are slowed and challenged as they attempt to gather information across silos, consolidate information from disparate sources in disparate formats, and solve these multifaceted problems. They're using brittle and manual workflows and expensive tools or consultants. We know what many of the solutions are to solve climate change, but we're blocked and hindered in deploying them when and where they're needed. Fortunately, at Climate Companion, slides. We provide the only knowledge fusion solution. It's built especially for the sustainability expert. These experts are crucial to accelerate climate-friendly solutions. I'm Cindy Thompson, CEO and co-founder of Climate Companion. We're building an online software platform where experts can gather information from multiple sources. Sources like steps along their supply chain, which is so crucial and been greatly impacted by both climate change and the coronavirus. Then they can consolidate information, treating annotations and workflows at the same level as the raw data. They're dealing with formats like spreadsheets, knowledge graphs, and even written reports. In the end, experts can create solutions and view their solution from their own perspective with themselves at the center, but they can also pivot or view the information from other perspectives. I don't have time to demonstrate our software today, but here's some screenshots from our platform. Our first customer team is Barrio Electrico, a community solar developer in Puerto Rico, where their meters are not smart like ours, and they're often very dysfunctional. We're helping Barrio with challenges like high variability between homes, lack of information about their electricity use, and a customer base that's not very informed about clean energy. We're helping Barrio to gather and organize information about each home to assess how much those homes might save when they install solar. Our technology accelerates scaling to huge potential impact across sectors. Our key success metric is gigatons of carbon dioxide eliminated or sequestered. We're carving out the piece of the global emissions pie that consists of US companies who've made net zero commitments or who are impacted by recent regulations from the SEC to disclose on climate risks. And we estimate this as a 2.2 gigatons of potential impact per year. Based on the cap and trade price in California, this is a $40 billion market. To start, we're connecting with customers in the clean infrastructure space. Clean energy, EV charging, and carbon dioxide removal are all pieces of this puzzle. There's no technology on the market that offers all the advantages we can. We fully empower the sustainability expert with our proprietary knowledge representation and knowledge modeling capabilities. Our software is offered on a tiered per user monthly subscription basis. We plan to have tiers for individual, small teams, and enterprise. We also offer enhanced features and proprietary knowledge offerings. Besides this, our software, we're going to offer a marketplace where sustainability experts can buy and sell their knowledge models. And finally, we've already talked to a few teams who are interested in partnering with us to develop a white model platform that they in turn resell to their customers. Our team has deep technical, startup, and business experience. My co-founder is a serial entrepreneur and experienced in fundraising and in selling to many diverse industries. We've also attracted advisors with rich sustainability expertise. As I said, we're onboarding our first customer now, and we're aiming to expand that to several customers this year. We're looking for funding. We're applying for a seed grant through the NSF, and we're ultimately aiming to impact up to 0.5 gigaton or more per sector per year in the long run. So we're filling our alpha pipeline right now, and I'm sure that you know 3 teams who can use our help today. Please send them our way, and let's solve this important problem together. Thank you again for having me today, and I look forward to hearing your feedback.
Thanks so much, Cindy. That was great. About 6 minutes and 30 seconds, just as an FYI.
Yeah, that was long.
Inez, do you want to kick off the comments?
Sure. Cindy, I do like the way the slides look, right? You didn't have too much information, and so that was good. For me, I really don't, other than the fact that I heard you say you had a software platform of some kind. I don't know if it's AI or SaaS or whatever. I'm not exactly sure, because what it is your platform does, right? And how does the platform work? I'm sorry, didn't get it.
Yeah.
I understood, like, you talked about clean energy, and then you get example about the guy with the meter. And it sounds like it's in a South American or Central America where they probably don't have a lot of money to do solar panels. But then you were talking about, in that example, about solar panels. So it would be, I understand the problem. It's in the news every day. We all get the problem. The question is, how do you, Cindy, succinctly solve that problem with your software? That's, and one of the ways is to, you can, you can say, okay, so the person goes in, you do sort of like a bar chart of some kind that goes, okay, Ines goes in and then she does this, and then this is the information that she gets. Is it, I got the idea that you have all this information in there, and if I go in there, I have to go search and destroy within your platform to find what you're doing. Honestly, that's what I heard you say. I took that note. So
Okay.
that's my biggest thing. You didn't really have in your revenue slide, right? Your revenue slide, you talked about traction that you have with a partnership. Honestly, you don't need to put your, where we've been, right? We started, you don't, but what you really need is bigger picture. Like, we have partnerships with XYZ, we're talking to, whatever, that becomes really more important.
Great.
Your team, your competition is one of the most important slides for me as an investor, because I need to, and you just glossed over it, I need to better understand what's your differentiator, what's your secret sauce, what makes you unique. You mentioned a bunch of people there, but you talked about other things, but you didn't go into that, right? And your team, I would want to know what's your area of expertise, right? Is it, you have 50 years experience, or that's what's important, right? Because 10% is your idea, 90% is execution. So I don't need to know everybody's biography. I rather see everybody's logo, and you tell me on your team, right? What makes them unique? Have they raised money before? Have they had acquisitions? Do they have 50 years experience, or whatever that is about your team? We talked about your competition. The market was, we're looking for your part of the market. In other words, if the pie is this big, which it is, right? It's humongous. The whole world is working on this. With your software, whatever it is it does, what percentage of that will you be able to execute upon?
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Inez. Great feedback. Zach?
Hi, Cindy.
Hi, Zach.
Thanks for that. I also felt like you did a great job with the slides overall, and the presentation, like the kind of logistics of it felt fairly good. Went a little long, as you know, but overall good on that front. I guess a couple comments / questions, trying to also build off of what we just heard from Inez and not be redundant. I think I like the Yeah, but the way you began with kind of introducing this language, like knowledge fusion, is, I think, interesting, compelling. And then the silver buckshot approach is something that we can envision as we think about the scale and complexity of the climate problem we're trying to solve. But I think in terms of the knowledge fusion language piece, I still feel like, to get to, to build off what Inez said, it doesn't give us enough understanding of the specific function and performance of your software.
Right.
And the fact that it is a software didn't actually come through immediately. It came in a few slides late. So I assume it's like a SaaS-based solution, right?
Yeah.
But I would like kind of lead with that in your opening, as well as introducing this kind of interesting language about what it does, but then get a little more specific to the how it functions to do that. And maybe it's early days and it's very customized, but I'd like to know that too. Like, is this something that you're tailoring in your first, per client, per customer, to get to the specific needs that they may have around a specific question or problem they're trying to solve? Or is it more like a kind of broad stroke application that's going to have relevance for every client or customer in its kind of core functions, even if it's standardized versus tailored to them specifically? So the other thing I was looking for a little bit more about was the, like, even the example you gave, it's early days, but you have one client that you're onboarding. What is this, more detail? You gave a little bit of like the specific problem that you're trying to solve for that client, and the value creation that your solution provides to them, given their business model, given their goals.
Right.
And then how that ladders up to what you mentioned at the end of the timeline for your kind of big picture goals around the half gigaton goal that you have in terms of carbon removal or reduction. So anyway, those were the high level things that struck me as we went through it. And I think overall, it's a really interesting moment to have a software solution to kind of wrangle all the work and data and knowledge that's being generated at breakneck speed these days, these problems. So
Yeah.
So kudos for that.
Yeah, I think you get the idea, Zach. Wrangle is a great word. Thanks.
Thanks, Zach. Brad?
Yeah, I think I've got a lot of similar things to say. I think number one, the presentation was very good, and it's a noble cause to go out there and try to do that. A couple of comments. You talked about a $40 billion market, but you really didn't give us any specifics on how you're going to get there, or what piece of that you can get by doing what. And I think we need a little bit more around that. The biggest question I have is around the intellectual property. Do you have intellectual property on this software, or can somebody come in and reverse engineer it and they'll save the world and not you? So I think that's one thing that we certainly need to know. And finally, and I'm going to stop here because everything else I've got down here has been covered before. You mentioned your success is going to be measured in the gigatons of carbon monoxide that is pulled out of the atmosphere, or sequestered. I think that's the word, the word you used. I think you want to be careful about that, because what you're going to do is your software is going to be used by other companies.
That's true.
So you may lose an ability to measure that. So you may want to either figure how to get around that, or there may be another success measure that you may want to look at.
Right. Yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you.
Great comments. Okay, well, just as we did with Amy, would anybody from the audience listening in have comments for Cindy?
I had a few. It's more in the certain ways the language was phrased, like bullet versus silver buckshot. It's not universally, understood.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can even skip the analogies and metaphors and come to the point. At that slide, you mentioned two names, but those are pretty much unknown, to the general public. So
Yeah,
that didn't add anything.
okay.
And even when you talked about Barrio, you said they don't have smart meters like we do. Well, who's they and who's we, right?
Oh, yeah. Good
And
point.
also the US doesn't have smart meters universally either. So
Yeah,
it depends. Your investors and your audience is global,
right.
and it can come across wrong.
Mhm.
The rest is pretty much what Ines said. The competitive slide was key. And one solution is maybe put a quad chart after that, which positions you versus the others
Yeah,
on just 2 dimensions. You have the competitive slide, but then visually people can figure out where you're positioned. So that was from my side.
That's great, TJ. Thank you. Thank you for that. Karen?
Hi, Cindy. I am equally passionate about sustainability like you are. And I wish you great success in this adventure. But you, perhaps it's because you were nervous, but I counted a little bit too many like ons and arms, like those words that perhaps it shows that we are nervous.
yeah.
So I invite you, when you are doing your pitch to funders, I invite you to practice with your spouse, practice with your mom, practice with your neighbor. I mean, memorize your pitch so well that it just comes like a second nature, and that way you will come across as a lot more confident, because your content is great. Just practicing a little bit more would definitely help.
Sure. Thank you.
Great, Karen. Thank you. Hall?
It seemed like there's a vision of capturing this data. Is there a data play here that you plan to do something with the information beyond just what the user's doing with it, perhaps sharing it with the rest of the community in some format?
Yeah, the user has control over what data they want to share always. So they own their data, but if they want to offer their data to others, that's on the marketplace, and that's totally, and if they want to share it with us and let us use it like you're suggesting for other purposes, that's also, yes.
It seemed like that's a competitive advantage over Tableau and the others, is that you
Yeah.
are in a place to actually create a data market to share this information around
Right.
to others, because you have a closed system of climate. And that would be
Yeah.
one of the impacts you could have as you're fostering this communication. But we didn't really kind of state that straight up. So if that's a vision, I would put that out there, that you're going to create a data market and share this around to foster it in a bigger way. Whether you monetize it or not monetize it is a different story. But
I
it
love
seemed like
that.
that's a great opportunity there for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely right. Thank you. That's great to emphasize that a little bit more. Mhm.
Okay, thanks.
Great suggestion, Hall. Any other comments for Cindy, or really at this point, any comments for Cindy or Amy before we wrap up? Well, great job, ladies. And Amy, yes, I agree with you. Beautiful shades of green on our virtual screens today. So we'll get to give everybody back 20 minutes in their day. Always grateful for our partners, Maryland Tech Council, Brad Fackler, SeedSpot, Zach Leverens, and of course, our fabulous guest judge today, Nez LeBeau, Hall Martin, past guest judge, TJ, Karen, thank you all for your comments, for Cindy and Amy, always super helpful. We look forward to seeing everybody for July Pitchmasters workshop. Feel free to spread the word and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Lisa.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.